is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Well, we are honored to have with us a good friend of the show, Gawain Towler, who was the former comms guy at Brexit and also Reform. Gawain, thank you for taking time, I know, out of your very busy schedule.
Good to be back with you, Tom.
So first, let me ask you, Katie Hopkins is having a grand old time making videos about reform. So what is going on inside the party right now?
You've got to remember that as the party, we've gone from a corner shop to Walmart in 8 months.
Yeah.
And as you do that, the systems, the personnel, all sorts of other things. It said like a minor league team, somebody sometimes breaks it into the major league. The fans are the same, the name's the same, the desire's the same, but there's nobody on the pitch who was there 2 seasons ago. There's nobody in the admin staff that was there 2 seasons ago. And that's the process we're going through. We've gone from no branches, no structure, or a bunch of volunteers working their socks off for very little reward to a professional organization. And as that process goes forward, noses get put out of joint, egos gets dented, vanity is not assuaged. I myself am an example of professionalization in that I was obviously a roadblock to democratization and professionalization of the party, which is why I had to go. Gotcha. The difference is some people, I'm sad to say, think that they're more important than the cause.
So that sounds
that doesn't mean I don't believe in it.
It sounds very similar to some of the MAGA groups in the U.S. The same process that's been going on for several years now. But what do the chances look like for reform going forward? I mean, are they the only option essentially?
I think so. Reform under Farage are the only machine that could possibly break the old duopoly of Labour and Conservatives. They are tired. They are thought-free, and they seem to just be bobbing along. Even despite all this trouble we've had today, the Tories are up 1, we're up 1, Labour's down 2. Now, and it looks like there's 3 parties of about the same size right now. But if you fold forward 3-4 years, 4 more years of disastrous economic policies and disastrous climate policies are going to impoverish the country. 4 more years of 4, 5, 6, 7, 800,000 people turning up on our shores. The mood is hardening. And the Conservative Party that brought in the net zero agenda, the Conservative Party that brought in the DEI world over the last 14 years, cannot and do not have the answers and won't be trusted. And as the country, by and large, is centre-right in its gut, every now and then it votes Labour because the centre-right have been so god-awful. And that is what has happened. But it doesn't, it's not an easy fit as a country, this sort of centre-left socialist-y type operation. So does reform have a chance? Yeah. Has reform got to take that chance? 100%. Another 4 years of this shower driving us into the ground, importing millions of people, changing our culture, silencing our voices. This won't be the UK anymore. So
well, that was exactly my question. Is it too late?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not too late. But I think in 10 years' time, it may well be.
Yeah.
And therefore, we cannot fluff this chance. The metaphor of carrying the Ming vase. The Ming vase, we cannot drop. And the Ming vase is the hopes of millions of our fellow citizens that we can turn this round, that we can change the world. What has always been very interesting about the UK, its revolutions are always conservative. The Peasants' Revolt back in 1382, they didn't want a brave new world. They weren't French about things. They wanted their old world back, thank you very much, and get off with give us back our liberties. And if you look at the Pilgrimage of Grace, you look at the Prayer Book Rebellion, and Brexit is an example, the Six Acts, the Charters. This is all about getting our liberties back. It's not about creating a brave new world. We don't want perfection. We're quite comfortable in our slightly muddled through world. We just don't like the government nicking our stuff from us.
It's kind of a reverse Bolshevik revolution, it seems.
Yes, absolutely. And Brexit was a classic case in point. It didn't posit that the world would be perfect. It's just we didn't want to be doing it like that. Thank you very much. Stop taking our freedoms away. Stop taking our liberties away. There are some links to MAGA America, but not as many as some people think. Yes, Farage is a friend of Trump. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean there's a slavish agreement with every single thing he does. And in a month's time, we've got the council elections. It's possible that Reform will win a couple of these councils. And these are about 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 population spaces. So they're quite large zones.
Yeah.
And I think we would definitely be looking at introducing a sort of mini local level Doge type thing to go through every single budget line and find out what on earth's been done with our money. We have the same opacity that America's had with US aid and various other things. So we expect to find quite a lot of cash hidden behind their sofa that we can then reapply or reduce taxes, one of the two. Reapply more effectively to provide better services, or reduce taxes, or a bit of both. But so we have these opportunities between now and 29 to actually prove ourselves. Okay, we quite like the cut of their jib. They seem to be decent sorts. We like their passion. We like their love of country. Can they actually do anything? Are they competent? Is a perfectly reasonable question. And we have to prove ourselves, not just to be thinking the right things, but being able to do the right things too.
So what's the process? Is a lot of confusion about how this may go forward with a new election or not, or what do you see happening, I guess, is the question.
The government has such a majority that there's no way we're going to go early. The government is not going to fall. Doesn't matter what happens. Hell would freeze over and that government still be in power until 2029 or 28 if they go a bit earlier. But there's nobody's going to force them into it. You might, through embarrassment and shame, we might lose our prime minister, but they will just be replaced by another Labour minister. So like the Tories changed their leaders like they changed their socks, but it didn't require an election. So we have to accept that. Within our constitution, and of course, it's going to be harder for us. If you look at what Reform's trying to do, we don't have a chance of Trump won. We need to learn now, while not in office, not to make the mistakes of Trump won, and we don't have the constitutional device of the executive order. So we are going to be having to wading through the treacly swamp from day one if we get into a position of power. And that is the judiciary. That is the House of your Senate, our House of Lords. There are 800 of them, and there's not a single Reform member. And there won't be.
So what are you built? Are you
Trump against a 100% Democrat Senate?
Yeah. It wouldn't work here. I mean, it's a different power structure in the House of Lords, though, right?
Yeah, but they do have the power to slow things down. A Farage-led government might find itself 2 years in and not a single piece of legislation has been enacted because of the ability of the courts and the House of Lords and other structures to block and delay and push back. So you may find yourself in a horrible constitutional crisis. Come 2030.
So what are you building? Are you building like we did in the U.S. The structure, the infrastructure, the people, the training people?
That is certainly happening, but noses are being put out of joint. And that's the nature of the beast. I'm sad to say. I wish it were not the case. Many of these people who are hurt are people I regard as close personal friends. I've known them for years. and they feel they're being superseded and overrun. They are, to a certain extent. And it's
that happened in the U.S. too. I mean, I hear from people that wanted to be in the Trump administration that were in the first one that just didn't get in because I think they're bringing in a lot of younger people that they can train up. But
you've got to have this. There's a sort of balance between loyalty and competence.
Yes.
Before 2024, the general election, we majored on massive loyalty. I can't pretend we majored on massive competence. The fact is, we had a team of about 6 at the centre that did the election campaign, got 4.1 million votes, 14% of it, and 5 members of parliament elected. That was an astonishing achievement. But we don't want 5 people elected. We want 360 elected.
Right.
And that is a massive, massive ask. And you do need competence. But if you buy in competence, when the chips are down, are they loyal?
Interesting.
That is the danger. If they're mercenaries, well, somebody else might pay them more.
There's a lot of that going around in MAGA too, in the U.S.
But that is the problem. They may have been not particularly brilliant. They may have been not particularly competent, but they would drive off a cliff and climb up the cliff afterwards and say, right, next.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is worth an awful lot, even if they're not particularly brilliant.
This is true.
And there are a lot of very good people. They may not have political science degrees and all the rest of it, but really good people. I do think, however, the retail offer we're going to make, both in policy terms and personnel terms when it comes to the next election, will be the best the country has seen for well over 100 years. Because the diversity of people and their background and experience is from all walks of life, not just the narrow Westminster, Whitehall, inside the loop experience that most political people have today.
Yeah.
So
what about immigration? Is there anything you can do in the next several years to slow or stop or impede?
Nothing.
No.
We're not in power. We can't do anything.
Yeah.
All we can do is highlight the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, well, as you know, I wrote a piece for you about the hardening of opinion in the UK,
Yes.
and that is certainly taking place. Tomorrow I'm in this old city of Durham. On Monday, I was at Chesterfield, where George Stephenson came from. On Saturday, I'm going to Worcester, where Elgar came from, talking to groups of 100, 200 people. And I'm seeing the hardening. It is setting before our eyes and before my very eyes, this hardening of attitudes. And 4 more years of, as I say, 500,000 a year in a country of 70 million, that's 2 million. That's, what, 8% just in 2 years or 4 years?
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. I'll throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the Alp again.
And of course, the fact is that many migrant groups, particularly those who are more antithetical to our culture, breed. They produce children at a far greater rate. The replacement rate is significant. And so people are getting increasingly concerned for the future of their country, concerned for the future of their culture. I wouldn't be at all surprised that Labour goes into the next election saying they're going to deport 1 million people. And that'll be the lefties.
Yeah, just trying to get power or stay in power.
Yeah. That would suggest that my lot might be putting a program together and saying 4 million or more. Now, how on earth you do that under the current constitution and legalities and being decent and to a certain extent, in order to do that, which many people on the right would like us to do, we have to tear up our very notion of fair play, of the common law, of everything we believe to be good about ourselves. And I think that will be a very hard. I hear people saying that on Twitter, attacking me for not being particularly hardcore on this right now. I've got a mixed race cousin. I'd deport her. What?
Yeah.
What? That's not the England I love. That's not our culture. And so a lot of these people who are sort of claiming this rather American sense of Anglo-Saxon are talking in language that is, I can't go there, and I will not go there. But if you change the incentive structure for migration, then I wouldn't be at all surprised if we have a lot of people leaving of their own accord.
Well, it's happening here with self-deportation. Yeah.
You call it, use the phrase you want to use. Like self-deportation is leaving. It's just leaving. Because if you change the incentive structure, if you say, right, you have to speak English within 6 months or you can't stay. For one, including women. Why should they get a buy? Including the Scots. No, that's not true. But if you do that, if you say no housing, no benefits, no welfare, no, you don't get the education if you've arrived here illegally, unless you, then suddenly the purpose of coming here is gone.
So what about the tyranny that people are seeing on social media, in police coming to the house because you criticized your schoolmaster, or
absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Basically, we took East Coast America and made it so much worse.
Well, both coasts is California too, but
yeah, but it came out of these dodgy little East Coast American universities.
That's true.
What was I read the other day? Climate change is started when Columbus's boat landed in Hispaniola. From some, by the way, British mixed race professor working in a small university in America.
Indigenous history is a thing, that's for sure here.
Absolutely bats. But we have inherited it and made it our own. We've put golden knobs on it and wrapped it in velvet. It is disastrous. But again, the country's waking up to it and they don't like it at all. We are fair-minded and this isn't. I wrote an article for the Daily Express yesterday about discovering that in the Department of Work and Pensions, which is the one that hands out welfare, you have the classic tick box. If you want to get a senior role internally, you've got a tick box through LGBTQ, whatever, color, religion, and socio and economic background. And the more ticks you get, the more chance you have of getting a senior position. Be damned your ability to do the job.
Sounds familiar.
This sort of thing is really starting to wind people up. People are seeing it everywhere. And I think and this is why I think Reform have a very good chance, because again, who brought this DEI rubbish in? The Tories. It wasn't Labour.
Well, wait till your aircraft start crashing and with the all-female.
Yeah, that was a bit weird. What, for a week or two, every other plane didn't even drop out of the sky in America. What was all that about?
Let me switch gears. What about economics? What about tariffs? Because I've got another show here in about 10 minutes. But
look, there's a deep amount of dishonesty on this side of the pond, both in Europe and the UK. We've been whacking tariffs on American products for decades. We just have. We have a horrible tariff regime. And suddenly America turns around and says, hey, quid pro quo. Oh, no, how dare you? You want to end the world. I do think America's been daft about certain things. I think Trump's foreign policy in certain areas like Canada, Greenland, are frankly absurd. And the damage that Trump's Canadian escapade has done to the centre-right in Canada is fatal. They are going to elect somebody worse than Trudeau because of that. And I can't understand who at state and who is even slightly, it's just madness and stupid on the part of the Americans when it comes to Canada. And I'm appalled by it. I mean, who the hell do they think they are, frankly?
Well, how do you answer? I mean, I hear you, and that's everywhere. We're hearing that a lot. But how do you answer the Chinese infiltration into Canada, the fentanyl?
You encourage the Canadians. You encourage a decent right-wing Canadian government to do something about it themselves, and you've just destroyed that chance. Well done.
Interesting.
You don't just turn up there and say you're ours. It's just outrageous.
I happen to think it's all negotiation, art of the deal stuff, but
maybe so. But you're going to be doing a deal with Mark Carney, not with Pierre Poilievre. Well done.
Yeah.
In the end, we might have to burn them. Might have to burn the White House down again. You rotten stingers. 12, here we come. But that's ridiculous. But no, on the greater scheme of things, basically, as I see it, America looks at the world. It's brought this horrible thing called reality back into politics, international politics, which is a bizarre concept because everybody's trying to pretend it doesn't exist for such a long time. And it's power and money.
You mean Europe's not going to deploy hundreds of thousands of troops to Ukraine, which they don't have? That kind of reality?
Funny that. And anyhow, they want that. Nobody in Britain's going to join up to fight for somebody who calls them a racist bigot. Because it's the white working class that's going to expect to wear green and die.
Exactly. Same here.
And, but the tariffs, it's going to be interesting. Of course, Britain is now looking at putting tariffs on other countries because we're terrified now of countries who can't trade with America because of the tariffs are going to be dumping their cheap products on us. This is not necessarily a good thing, by the way. So it's all a bit of I don't know what's going to happen. I do think the art of the deal, but America clearly has looked at the world, or the Trump administration has looked at the world over the last 4 years and said, right, who's the big scary? Ooh, the big scary is China.
Yeah.
China.
Gaza,
little local difficulty, hit the blighters and getting the shut up sorted out. Yeah. Ukraine, regional difficulty, Europe's problem.
Agreed.
China's the globe's problem. And to me, I feel that to Washington, both the Ukraine and Gaza are irritants, but they're not going to change the world, whereas China will. And so it is understandable that its focus spins on China rather than it just wants them to stop killing each other and settle down to some form of peace. Not ideal, not perfect for the people, the combatants, not the Ukrainians who frankly, nobody's perfect in this world, but the Ukrainians are less imperfect than the Russians, let's be honest. They didn't invade Russia. And that's just the basic bottom line. And I think one of the interesting things over Ukraine was one of the very first acts of the Trump White House was to put sanctions on any ship carrying Russian oil anywhere in the world. And suddenly 20% of the large bulk oil carriers parked instantly. This wasn't pro-Russia. This wasn't pro-Putin. Absolutely no way. But people didn't seem to notice that.
Well, they don't want to notice that because that goes against the narrative. Yeah.
He's shook things up. Let's pray that in 6 months' time there is proper peace there, or more quickly. I really hope so.
Is the UK helping in that process or harming that process?
UK's irrelevant in that process.
Really? Because I think they are one of the power centers that are trying to keep it going. That's just my opinion.
I don't think they're trying to keep the war going, but they don't like Trump, and so therefore anything Trump does is wrong. And I don't think they seem to understand the real politics of it. Are they? But I really don't think they matter. What are we going to do? Send our one division? We get wiped out in a week, and that'd be it.
Well, what about? I mean, the UK is continuing to provide intelligence and for long range strikes in Russia. I mean, I'm concerned about a bigger conflict in the Middle East and in Europe. I think that's what some people want, in your government and mine, actually.
I don't think our government wants a bigger conflict. We just know we're not capable of it.
Yeah.
We're just not capable of it. We don't understand what the hell's going on with Chagos. Nobody understands what the Tory government the Labour government's doing over the Chagos Islands. It's baffling to us. We cannot see any positive. If I was American, I'd let the UK pay vast sums of money for somebody to take our own property off us, and then go to the Mauritius and say, we'll buy it for half the price. Thanks. So Mauritius gets 2 paydays, you get the thing, and we get nothing. But that sounds the level of UK diplomatic intelligence at present. It is terrifying when I look at how we're doing or how we're behaving around the world. It's just.
Last question: the sex scandal, with the Asian gangs. Starmer was, I think, last time we talked, he was, impacted by that. That seems to have gone away, at least in the U.S. press. What about in the UK?
Yeah, Musk's other things to worry about.
Yeah.
Basically, there are certain things, but the fact is, the government is refusing point blank to have a national inquiry. Mm-hmm. Now, Rupert Lowe and a couple of others are putting together a crowdfunder to have their own inquiry. It's a joke. It's a bad joke. It's a grift. Because if the inquiry is not statutory, does not have the right to compel witnesses, it cannot do anything. And frankly, a lot of the victims don't want another inquiry into the crimes against them. They do want to sort out the systems of authority that covered it up and allowed it to go on for such a long time.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear about rapes for that. We don't need to go through all that. We know how ghastly it was. We really do. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is find out where the cover-up was, who was backing it, who was supporting it, who was too frightened to talk, why were they too frightened to talk, and heads need to roll. But a voluntary, self-funded inquiry is onanism on the part of those people who are doing it, because they will not be able to achieve anything beneficial. Hundreds of thousands of people will be donating to something that essentially does nothing, and the victims of those crimes have their horrors retold. So, frankly, but that doesn't mean, and I suspect, and I know that it's something we'll be looking at, along with net zero, DEI, trade, lowering taxes, etc., migration. I think in the event of a reform or reform-led coalition, a reform government or reform-led coalition, a proper, serious, deep dive inquiry into the cover-up and the political circumstances that allowed that cover-up to take place will take place. But it will be serious, it'll be properly funded, it will be properly resourced, and it will have the power to compel witnesses and to have serious impacts on how things work. Everything else is just, as I say, it's political onanism. And that's sad.
Gawain, thank you for your time. I've got to go, but really appreciate you carving some space out for us today. I know you're slammed, so thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Take care.